CTV family. Catch us live on your TV screens.
Catch us live on your TV screens indeed, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching Channel 263, the People's Channel. Right now, I'm sitting with Hayley, who is from the Stroke and Heart Foundation, South Africa. Before we started the show, well, actually, when we started the show, I said you should go and check out what hypertension is. And if you did your homework quite correctly, then you're going to enjoy this interview. But don't worry, if you didn't, we are going to inform you because that's what the show is all about. Welcome to the show, Hayley. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me and welcome to all your listeners.
Right, Hayley. So before we even start, what is hypertension?
Okay, so hypertension is just a fancy word for high blood pressure. And what that means is the force of pressure flowing through your blood vessels is persistently high. So when you get your blood pressure measured, they look at two numbers. That's your first number is your diastolic blood pressure. That's the pressure when your heart's contracting, and that's the higher number. The lower number is the systolic blood pressure when it's your heart relaxing between the beats. And your blood pressure is expressed as one number over the other. So for an example, optimal blood pressure reading would be 120 over 80.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to touch on reading a little bit later on in the show.
Sure.
But now I want you to explain to us and the viewers why is World Hypertension Day so important and why it should actually be acknowledged.
Yes, thank you. That's a very important question. So World Hypertension Day is celebrated annually every year on the 17th of May. So that was actually yesterday.
Yes.
And it's promoted by the World Hypertension League. And every year they choose a different theme for this day. And the theme this year is measure your blood pressure accurately, control it, live longer.
Yeah.
And the aim is to create awareness around blood pressure, high blood pressure.
Yeah. Talking about high blood pressure and measuring it, how can one measure their high blood pressure correctly?
You would have to go to a clinic and a registered nurse would have to measure your blood pressure. So what we advise is if you're older than the age of 45, we recommend you go once a year to check your blood pressure. Otherwise, as advised by your medical professional.
I'm interested to know what the stats of hypertension are in South Africa and globally.
Yes. So globally, hypertension is responsible for 13% of deaths globally. So it's quite a high statistic. And it averages to about 1 in every 4 people have hypertension. Then if we look at the South African context, 1 in every 3 people has hypertension, and this is responsible for 1 in every 2 strokes and 2 in every heart attacks.
Yeah.
So you can see high blood pressure is a real risk factor for heart attacks and strokes.
Yeah. Now that also brings me to my next question of, is that the reason why the hypertension is also known as the silent killer?
Yes, exactly. It's called the silent killer because there are rarely any signs and symptoms. In other words, they say that up to 50% of people are walking around with high blood pressure, but they're unaware of it because there's no specific signs and symptoms.
Yeah. What are the risk factors of hypertension then for the specific signs and, to see that actually I might be in the loop for getting, yes.
Yes, so there are various risk factors. The first is family history. That is if you have a family member who's had a history of high blood pressure. The second is age, because unfortunately, as we get older, our blood pressure gets higher. So those factors you can't really do anything about. But there are some factors that you can make a difference. And this is, for example, eating an unhealthy diet. And this is a diet that's high in salt and low in fruits and veggies. That's also a risk factor for high blood pressure.
Yeah.
Being overweight is another risk factor. And then being physically inactive, so not doing any physical activity, is also a risk factor. And then if you look at alcohol consumption is a risk factor, and smoking is a very big risk factor. Because what smoking does is it actually narrows your blood vessels, which leads to high blood pressure. And in fact, smoking almost triples your risk of having a heart attack and almost doubles your risk of having a stroke.
Yeah. Now, Hayley, would you say there is an interaction or connection between hypertension and COVID-19?
Yes, there is. Recent studies have found that if you have hypertension, you're at higher risk of getting a more severe form of COVID-19.
Yeah.
So now it's even more relevant to be aware of your high blood pressure.
Yeah. Now, before we leave, I want you to please tell our audience where they can get more information, and if they want to contact you and have some more questions about hypertension, or if they feel like they have the symptoms, what they should do, where should our viewers go to get all of this information?
Okay, so your viewers can go to our website.
Yeah.
That's www.heartfoundation.co.za. But they can also follow us at our social media handles. So I'll give that to you. The Facebook is @HeartStrokeSA, and then our Twitter handle is @SAHeartStroke. Another thing your listeners can do is we've started a health chat line.
Okay.
So what they can do is actually phone in to our national office.
Yeah.
And I'll give you our telephone number.
Please.
It's 021 422 1586. And they can book a slot with any one of our health professionals to have a chat about their heart health concerns.
Yeah. Hayley, that is so wonderful, and thank you so much. But now, as I'd mentioned to you, and you at home watching, you know that every guest that I have, I like to put them on the spot. I'm not going to put you too much on the spot, Hayley, because you know we're talking about serious stuff. I don't want your high blood pressure to go up because of me.
Stress also can increase your blood pressure.
But now I want to know if you, how old are you at heart, and why that specific age?
Okay, that's a very interesting question, and I think it's a very clever question. So I don't have to reveal my.
No, at heart.
At heart, I'm still in my young 30s.
Okay.
And why I feel that way is I think it's all to do with your state of mind.
Yeah.
If you feel young, you're going to act young.
You said it. Now for the last question, Hayley, later on in the show, we're going to be talking, well, rather our presenters are going to be tasting some burgers, having juicy, nice time. Now, if a daily would come to you and say, Hayley, we are opening this cafe and we're going to name a sandwich after you, please let me know what would be in that sandwich and why.
Oh, wow, that's an interesting question, and I'm glad you're getting fed what I believe is some vegan and healthy food, which obviously I'm very for.
Yeah.
Let me call it Hell's Healthy Hamburger.
Okay, so it will be Hale's Healthy Hamburger. That's what would be in.
But it would be a vegan burger, so
Okay.
it wouldn't be a meat burger. It would be made from dried peas and beans and lentils, or a soya burger. So it would also.
I love meat. I'm sorry. It's vegan. You say dry peas and everything. I can't.
But don't forget the delicious toppings like a juicy
Sauce.
a juicy tomato instead of the sauce, and a crisp piece of lettuce.
Speaking about juicy and crispy, this interview has come to its crisp end. Thank you so much for joining me, and I learned so much about hypertension. And I hope all of our viewers will go into Hayley's website, or rather the SA Stroke Foundation, and find out more information, or actually contact them if you know something or you feel there are risk factors that you have. For now, we're going to go to a quick ad break, but after the ad break, you will see me at an art exhibition in Khayelitsha. See you. Now, do not touch that remote.
CTV family.